my frog throat. Thank God for coffee. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Just gotta clear my throat. Always in the morning. Not always. That's not true. All right. Welcome to this very special edition. I wanted to give a shout out to Kay, who donated $10 and also $1, but the $10 super chat question. Good morning, Father Deacon. Protestants' lack of normative authority have paved the way of the destruction of the West. It has introduced an ethos of relativism that allows these people to kill, loot, mutilate children, destroy the family. Excuse me. I've always said that Protestantism is thoroughly kind of modern ideology. It's kind of presuppositions built in that are very modern. So certain kind of themes within modernity, starting with Descartes, an obsession with methodology. So I'd also say abstractionism. So there's a movement. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that changes. The very notion of human nature, the polis, that man being kind of made in the image of the Trinity, or should I say the image of God, which is triadic, and that this has its manifestation even in, again, who man is and what the state and all of this is changing. Protestants inherit that. There's an obsession again with moving away from the kind of incarnational and communal aspects to a sort of kind of rationalism and abstractionism of propositions and obsession with algorithms, formulas, heuristics, methodologies, like you see this in Descartes. So notice what the Protestant becomes obsessed with. Propositions, a written text. They take a piece of the whole and they then basically idolize it. They're Bible idolaters. And then it's all about the hermeneutics, the methodology of reading the text. That's thoroughly modern. They're anti-hierarchical, which is in your comment right there. A rejection of normative authority. There is a general kind of rebellion against authority and kind of revolutionary spirit in modernity that I think, yes, is embraced. All those principles are presupposed, almost unconsciously in the Protestant methodology. Also, nominalism, rejection of real essentialism, and all this has disastrous consequences, as you pointed out. Let's see. Plowing on in, everybody. Like and share. We had a great continuing education and Inquirer's catechesis class, which hits the three groups. That's why if you ever wonder why is it called catechesis, Inquirer's catechesis and continuing education, because there's three groups of people that course, those lectures are designed for. Those who are merely inquiring, those who are catechumens, and also Orthodox Christians who are baptized that need to continue learning the faith. There was somebody that I invited, I'm not going to name them, to that, and they said, no, I don't need to go. I don't need to learn. I'm already Orthodox. It's like, okay, what can I say? Like, I almost wanted to say that Okay, why don't you explain the energetic processions in hypostasization? Well, do you know what that word means? Oh, you don't? Maybe you should continue your education on orthodoxy. What can you do? You can't. You can lead a horse to the trough. I was just gonna say those makes my happen. You can lead a horse to a trough shooting fish in a barrel, but you can't always. Have you ever seen that joke where like you mix your metaphors? The afros. You lead a horse to the trough, but you can't force them to drink. What can I say? But we all benefit from continuing to study, to read our scriptures daily as we do here. Um, it's just like, like learning a language or something like that. You also got to practice. Although also you can forget if you don't. So thank you, Michelle, for joining. Didn't have a lot of people last night. It might be because of the tragedy um, uh, that's occurred, and I want to talk a little bit about that. um, Emotions are high, and just see something real quick. Sergius, $25. Wow, for another great catechol lecture. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining. It is good to be back and doing the classes. How should we pray for the non-Orthodox? Kind of like we did today. For those outside of the faith, I mean, if they have specific needs, I mean, you know, if you have somebody specific in mind that has specific needs, you can obviously pray for them. If just generally, um, pray for their souls their hearts to be softened, their souls to be illumined by God, that they may come into the church. Like that's kind of what we do in the morning prayers. Austin donates $10. Thank you. Yeah, there were a lot of live streams. I just want to encourage everybody, first of all, um, because emotions are high, um, I haven't actually engaged. Obviously, we've seen, and it's demonic. What people are saying, and I don't think this is the time to engage with the other side. Um, there's a lot of rage bait going on. I cut like a principle. I felt somewhat at peace. I'm annoyed. I'm gonna cover like some of the stuff that I've seen and just kind of analyze. I've chosen not to engage or talk to any of these people because intuitively I knew that I'm like it's gonna bring me down into my passions. Right now, I encourage all of you to not engage with these people. Um, when something, let me give a general principle. In times past, I've seen, somebody say something ridiculous or something like that, and I'm emotionally raw, and you're upset, and I'll tell myself, don't say anything, at least for 3 days. We need at this point to kind of keep a cool head, um, be aware of our passions and stuff like that. First of all, none of these people are going to listen. It's beyond dialogue at this point. Um, I mean, they killed the last person who, was actually trying to dialogue. And we'll kind of go over that. The other thing that I'm noticing too, Father Turbo talked about this on Buck's channel. There's a demonic possession, if you haven't picked up on that. Um, And, oh, I'm just reading your chats. We need to cool down, yeah. You know, I always tell Jay too, he may write me about something like, should I respond? I'm like, no, wait at least 3 days. You'll cool down, you'll get a better, it's a good principle. There's very few things that need to be responded to right away. Just get a level head, get out of your passions, and think this through. But like, there's nothing you're gonna say to them. Like, uh, and we'll talk about that. But the other thing to think about is it's madness. It's not just. I was talking to my mother about this. What are you noticing? Unhinged comments, false, inaccurate information was nothing kind of new that you've seen from the left and liberals. But I realized it just came to me last night. That's not simply, we've been talking about and just kind of reducing this to politics. And we'll talk about that. But it just came to me that I'm like, this is not simply explainable by politics and how far liberals have moved away in, the last 60, 70 years from what, a Democrat was in the 50s or 60s or something like that. Um, it's a lot more than that. It's a possession. And it's spreading, right? And it's infecting. And that's why I was saying be careful engaging with, if it's a demonic possession, you don't want to engage with demons. And I'll read, there's a great, it's been going around. It was on Orthodox Christianity, how individuals and nations become demonically possessed. I think it's a short homily given by Metropolitan Tikhon of Pskov, which I've been to Pskov caves. A sermon on the gospel of the demoniacs and Gardenes. I always mispronounce that. And in 2020 of November. So if you don't mind, let's just kind of contextualize this and read this. I'll just try to share the screen. Austin donates $10 super chat. Thank you. Thank you guys. Reddit. Yeah, it is rage bait. And keep in mind too, especially on Twitter and some other places, Twitter promotes, the algorithm promotes controversial things. So right now, it's dragging you down into rage bait. That's the algorithm's going to promote that. So just keep that in mind. All right, let me see. I want to pop up. Give me capture. Many of you seen this, and it's worth reading right now. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The event we remember today is shocking. The casting out of demons and the two Gadarene demoniacs. No one could handle them, and they couldn't handle themselves. Only God freed them from the demonic possession. But in the gospel story, there is something even more amazing that the people and the demons wrought, and not God. If the Lord cast, I think this is typo, out the demon from the demoniac, and the people cast God from themselves. This is even more astounding. People saw the ineffable miracle of God in the healing of the incurable sick man, which brought wonder upon the entire region and upon those present. But instead of falling down at Jesus' feet to thank him, saying, "Stay with us forever," they said, "Depart from us." This is the real diabolical wonder that takes place in the human race. Now, even certain Orthodox priests are saying that the demonic possession doesn't exist, that it's a mental illness, that it's nothing but Orthodox people's emotional over-exhilaration and sometimes even simulation. They weren't here in the Ploskov Caves Monastery in the 1980s when Father Adrian served the rite of exorcism in the Church of the Meeting of the Lord. We saw with our own eyes how a 13-year-old girl just tossed off strong men as she headed for some goal known only to her. People don't think about what's happening in their own lives and the lives of those close ones, in the life of the country and people, how God's Spirit works, how guardian angels influence people's thoughts and deeds, how the devil and demons influence those deeds, thoughts, and the state of the soul. Man is always falling for these terrible influences because the evil spirits, the devil, demons, the multitude of spirits who are at enmity with God, who hate men and hate God even more, act upon our souls and minds in ways that we don't suspect. The Holy Fathers warn us not to think too much about this because it's beyond the capacity of the human mind. As a rule, when people begin to think about it, they fall into a state where the demons start taking over their minds and souls. But we do need to understand and know about this. Continued concentration on the infernal and cruel subject of demons, which definitely exists, can drive a person out of his mind and make him a plaything of demons. But it's necessary to remember this. Sometimes whole nations become subservient to these spiritual beings, the demons. Demons move into people's souls, which then unite in spirit with evil and madness, and they destroy themselves, their minds, and their country. They do things in a state of ecstasy, intoxication, and infernal joy that they are later ashamed of, and they don't understand how they could have possibly done such things. They, as if, realize their dream, but that dream was sent to them from the devil and taken from the devil. From time to time, we see how dangerously a man proceeds when he is in a state of heated blood, as St. Ignatius wrote, Brackenonov, and as if possessed, lurches after a certain goal. He wants it very much, pays attention to nothing else, hears nothing else, and is in a state of total ecstasy and intoxication. You can see this in the videos of people celebrating. Like there's a madness. They're laughing like it's, to anybody that has eyes, like can see that it's not simply like one's politics. It's a demonic possession. We can see that something peculiar and abnormal is happening to that person. They have joy, but it's demonic joy. We recall, serve ye the Lord with fear and rejoice in him with trembling. But there is no trembling here, only terrible intoxication. Such people are stubborn. That's why I said you can't talk to, like, we're beyond dialogue at this point. And they killed the last person who attempted this kind of dialogue. That clearly is, Metropolitan writes here, do not obey the church in reason. These people are suicides who only later understand it. These people are involuntary murderers that kill the souls and lives of many peoples, but they only stand that as time goes by. Examples of such terrible madness and demonic possession were our Russian revolutions. It was not without reason that our Russian saints warned that demonic possession awaited the Russian people. At the end of the 1820s, St. Seraphim warned about the terrible events to come. In 1823 to 1824, when a man who would later participate in the Decembrist uprising in 1825 came to St. Seraphim, who was standing near the holy spring that had welled up by his prayers, the saint refused to bless that sincerely religious revolutionary who came to him for a blessing. He sent him away with the words, everything you are scheming is a terrible demonic obsession. You will lead Russia and the Russian people to catastrophe. St. Seraphim's disciple asked him why he refused to bless the believing man. And St. Seraphim pointed to his usually pure, translucent spring, now completely murky, and said, they will stir up and darken Russia just like the spring. St. John of Kronstadt also warned of the events that would take place in February 1917, saying that Russia would soon go mad. He died in 1908, having warned everyone about this in advance. St. Theophan the Recluse, St. Ignatius, and our contemporaries have saw with horror how demons entered people, and they told us about it. Bishop Theophan said, quote, Demons have possessed people's souls, and the Russian people have become demoniacs. The great Russian poet Maximilian Voloshin wrote, quote, "People, madly obsessed, are beating their hands against the stone and tearing their bonds like ones possessed. Recall the deaf and dumb demon-possessed boy whom the Lord healed." Voloshin writes, quote, "Is it not that spirit possessing you, O Rus, you deaf and dumb? The devil has stolen your reason and freedom. He throws you into water and fire, against the rocks and to the woods." Such events unfortunately repeat themselves. Very few people understand what's happening during these times of demonic possessions. The larger part, to a profound regret, perceive their own demonic possession as something admirable. Quote, beating themselves against the rocks, throwing themselves into the fire and water, killing themselves and others. The holy passion bearers are Nicholas II, who did very much for our fatherland, was defamed and slandered. He had lifted all spheres of the people's lives, from agriculture to health services, to unprecedented levels for that time. For many years, everything in Soviet Russia was compared to the level of 1913. The country was victorious. In the bloody First World War, Russian troops were ready to free Russia's territory occupied by Germans, march into Berlin, Vienna, and Constantinople. The armies of the Udenic and Kolchak were right near Constantinople. Russia was the only country in the world where there were no ration cards during the war. Cards were distributed only for sugar so that people wouldn't make moonshine. But there were ration cards in neutral Switzerland, in the US, which entered the war the day after the Tsar's arrest. And the victorious country that had overcome all the complications of wartime was crushed by its own demonic possession. To be sure, external forces also participated in the revolution. That's important too. Because what I want to say is that the temptation here with what's going on is the either or kind of fallacy. Oh, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. This is all just demonic. It's not just all demonic. And people don't want to talk about politics. Oh, the church shouldn't talk about politics. But here, obviously, the Metropolitan's talking about politics. There's a political movement, right, that must be morally condemned. And it's joined forces with the demons. So it's a cowardice to not actually point out the obvious because you're afraid to offend people. As St. John Chrysostom says, better we offend our fellow men than by not offending them we offend God. Because we have people in the Orthodox Church that want to vote Democrat or a part of these things. Well, I'm not political. We shouldn't. I don't want to get political. You have a duty as a Christian to morally call that out. It's wrong and it's demonic. And you can't do the either or fallacy. Oh, it's just demonic. Politics doesn't mean anything. As Metropolitan says, external forces participated in the revolution. And we're having something like that going on today. But we happily accepted the demon of revolution and destroyed a great country. Later, when people came to their senses, they reproached themselves, but it was too late. Just imagine the demonic insanity. The first order of the provisional government, the dream of those handshake liberals. Oh, it's political. Can't say that. Shame on you, Orthodox. You cowards who are afraid to actually speak up truth and actually point out demons in actual political parties. The first order of the provisional government, was to cease disciplinary measures in a fighting army. The second crazy idea, whirling in the demonic maelstrom, was to order to fire all governors and vice governors. The entire vertical power collapsed. The Germans who had retreated under Nicholas II were advancing. The police and Gendarmerie, is that how you pronounce it, were let go. and People's Militia was created using criminals released from prison. Where does that sound familiar? These insane actions by demon-possessed people, supported by demon-possessed portion of the population, led up to the point in 1917 when there was no more Russia. The Germans were outside Petrograd. Industry was pummeled, agriculture dead. In 1918, the GNP was equal. Is that GDP, I guess? Gross national product was equal to 30% of what it was the year before. Civil War erupted. And those exaltations over the toppling of Nicholas II over the New World were utter madness. Glory be to God. The strength of the Russian people who were raised in the Orthodox faith kept the country from disintegrating altogether. It was even reborn. All the projects had been engineered under Nicholas II. The famous GOELRO plan, the industry plan, the 5 plans for the metro system lay on Tsar Nicholas's desk, were brought into being, thank God, but what cost? And what demonic madness remained? The entire church structure was practically destroyed. Millions of people repressed, an astronomical number of deaths, the culture demolished, and great heritage destroyed and were taken out of the country. In our province, Pskov, there are a multitude of ruined churches and old estates. And their demonic madness, the people destroyed all the best the country possessed. It came to the point where religious and non-religious heritage was denied and rejected. Only in 1934 were school children allowed to study history and literature. Suicidal demonic possession often happens to large communities of people. The doctors talk about this another way. But what they say is also interesting. I'm now preparing articles on the events of 1917, and I think, Lord, how could people burn down their own house with conviction of suicidal fanatics? Many doctors at the time, Bekhterev, Rosolmo, Ivan Petrovich Pavlov, and others, were no strangers to the revolutionary mode. Even so, they all say that it was mass psychosis, but Orthodox Christians say it was a demonic possession. Unfortunately, many Orthodox Christians are far from completely understanding this. The events of 1917 speak to this. To be honest, not all religious people saw the revolutionary events as evil, demonic, or suicidal. Moreover, theological seminaries were often hotbeds for revolutionary movements. Have we heard that and seen that before? During the late 19th century, the early 20th century's revolutionary cells formed in a number of seminaries. That means that there were real enfeebling of the church and demonic delirium. It's no coincidence that one of the secretaries of our country's Communist Party was a former seminarian. Most horrible is that a person who has faith can lose it. Who loses faith? Someone once who had it. Who becomes demonically possessed? Most believers. The devil attacks them. The devil is not so interested in unbelievers. Isn't that funny? Because a lot of Protestants believe that believers can't be possessed. And here we have, no, that's who the demons do attack. They're out, the unbelievers, they're outside of God as it is. We have to remember this, and how many priests and bishops also greeted the events of February 1917 with elation. Many of them became new martyrs after they had come to their senses. To be sure, it's easy for us to talk about this in hindsight. And of course, we're not judging anyone. But this demonic possession had stolen into the very heart of our religious nation. Demonic possession is a reality, no matter how diabolic powers laugh at it. They are precisely the ones who are laughing at us when we talk about spiritual illness and demonic possession by the devil. For the devil, there is nothing more useful than convincing people that he doesn't exist, that there is no such thing as demonic possession, that it simply doesn't occur. They completely take a person over and lead him around where he wishes, and do it in such a way that the person doesn't even guess what's happening. That person will latterly think that those thoughts are his own, that it's his own decision. Brothers and sisters, let us remember that each of us can meet this illness, just like ordinary somatic illnesses on our own paths. None of us have any guarantees. It's very arrogant and prideful to think that this happens somewhere with someone else, but not to us. People have a tendency to put up their guard against gloomy thoughts. But when this illness happens, they shrug their shoulders and say, what can we do? signs of this illness exist, it doesn't necessarily mean that the affected person is going to climb the wall and throw things around. The Holy Fathers tell us what happens to human soul, to a person's morality, when he's possessed by a demonic spirit. It's pride, trusting only in oneself, in a rebellion against the church with its rules and life, high-mindedness, judging, not admitting one's own mistakes, stubbornness in your sins. First of all, not sins of flesh, but mental, emotional sins. That's why I was warning all of us. At this point, don't engage with it, because this is what's going to happen. It's a demonic trap. It's going to bring us into the mental and emotional sins. If you feel like this, go talk to a priest. Come to confession, talk about this first of all. Because this illness is precarious and have very serious consequences with the soul and its salvation. We rarely talk about this subject. And thank God, it's too scary. For from time to time, we're obligated to remind our flock and our own selves about it, no matter how people relate to it. Even if it's with displeasure and misunderstanding, in order to protect ourselves and our close ones from the possibility of getting this serious illness, which is only cured by humility, love, peace, and hope in God, and the prayer to the Lord, may the Lord preserve you. Oh man, isn't that a great for this time and what we are going through so watchfulness, nepsis, be on guard. We're in dangerous times, and like I said, it can't simply be explained. We can do, and we will, an analysis of the politics and stuff like that. But to get engaged in the rage bait is obviously a demonic trap. There's a demon possession going on over our country and people that's manifesting itself politically. And at this point, I think it's good we just not be arguing and dialoguing with these people. There's nothing you're going to say. It's like the heretic. Everything's evidence for their position, and nothing can be evidence against their position. Have nothing to do with a contentious man. I think there was kind of hope earlier that there could be dialogue. And again, with men, what's impossible with men is possible with God. But as far as analyzing politically, these people are far beyond listening to reason, and only God can save them. And the first thing we need to do is you acquire the Holy Spirit. Make sure that we don't fall into this. If they are going to be saved, it's going to be saved through that. But let's just see. Got some more super chats. Matthew donates $20. Thank you. I'm a catechist 1 year. Yesterday I was in class. Our parish holds weekly. Someone asked me, is it okay for Orthodox to marry non-Orthodox? I said no. And I was then rebuked and told to ignore the canons and the fathers. Good question. There is no fast and hard rule on that. Okay. It is allowed, but that's not a rule. That's something the priest and bishop who knows your situation has to answer. And the reason why you're probably told to ignore the canons is that it's not the individual, certainly a catechumen that interprets the canons. Those are rules and guidelines. They're kind of general. But it takes the priest and the bishop kind of looking at every situation to say, would this be good? They have to take into factors of who you are, what the situation is, how far you are along in the relationship, obviously the children would have to be raised Orthodox, and the priest has to get authorization from the bishop and make a decision so I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt that why they said ignore the canons is that people misunderstand the canons. It's not meant for them to interpret. The laity is not to. And so, like I said, it's not encouraged. It's not the norm. that an Orthodox can marry a non-Orthodox person, but it is allowed in certain circumstances. Does that make sense? Great question. Jonathan Kelly, 499. Rationality is a faculty given to God, therefore the demon possessed cannot be reasoned with. Yes. Yeah. Something I wanted to go into to show you. I know this is not a popular opinion and position, but I'm going to say it. That there's no way, and it's, I think part of the problem is we're Western, certainly American, most of us probably in the chat too. And I do it my way. Freedom, right? I should have a right to choose whatever political. Who are you to say that one political party's wrong, and it's certainly not the church's duty to step in and guide me and inform me morally on those things. That is not the Orthodox way. And so there's a lot of people that are afraid to actually say this. But it should be clear, there's no way that you can be a Christian and support the Democratic Party and vote Democrat. If you're upset by that, that's because you're an ideologue and an idolater. Also, don't get stuck in the false dialect. Doesn't mean I'm a Republican or a conservative. And again, people are lazy and egotistical, and they want what they want, and they don't want to be informed that, no, I'm sorry, it's at the point, there's absolutely no way that you could be a Democrat. And we're starting to see that. And people are going to reframe that. They're going to use smoke and mirrors and red herrings. They're going to be like, well, the right's violent and stuff like that. They're going to lie. That's why I said there's somebody who's convinced, who's a liberal and Democrats, there's nothing you're going to say to them at this point. They will project. And we can go through the analysis that proves this. But again, when we talk about, and Father Turbo has talked about this too. I say Father Turbo because he had that podcast, The Royal Path, and was on with Father Peter Hears saying orthodoxy transcends left and right. That's true. But people misunderstand that. They misunderstand two ways. Well, that means that the Orthodox is not involved in politics at all. No, that's not what that means. It means don't be an ideologue. Unless you're a monk, especially at the local level, and even just keeping up to date on what's going on politically is the duty of every Orthodox Christian who's a citizen. It's really it's cowardice and laziness to be like in a delusion to think, well, I'm beyond that because Orthodoxy transcends that. All that means is the kingdom of heaven is first. Politics and stuff like that is third, fourth down on the list. And yes, it's unfortunate people do make that a first. Number two, Father Turbo said that, and it makes people happy that, oh, we'll see it transcend. We take the royal path. So that means, both are bad. Both sides are bad. And Father Turbo said, the royal path is not the middle. If you think that's what it means, you think they're both equally bad. That's like saying Um, well, Pol Pot and the Jehovah's Witnesses are both equally bad. It's like, are you kidding me? And then you don't want to say that one is far worse and more evil. Why? Because you don't want to offend people. You want people should be able to choose to vote however they want. Um, and morally, no, absolutely not. Like there's certain positions and whatever. Like I said, I have plenty of criticisms of Republican Party. Like they're certainly not moral people, like politicians and stuff like that. Um, but is was it? I believe Saint Paisios said, and Father Deacon Patrick Mitchell had mentioned this too, that orthodoxy is a both a balance between um ideal, like you can't vote for an anti-Christian party, but at the same time we're very practical, right? It says you vote despite what the problems or moral failings are of people and politicians, you vote who would be best for Christianity and Orthodox Christians. Paige Strong, $20. Thank you for being a voice of reason and comfort. Thank you so much in this crazy world, isn't it? So, let me just put it this way. And why this event's so important. It's apocalyptic, it's a revealing. Okay? Don't fall in the false dialectics. Me criticizing liberals and the left isn't like advocating for right and Republicans and any more than if you were looking at Jehovah's Witnesses and Pol Pot. Me criticizing Pol Pot means that like, oh, so you're for Jehovah's Witness. It's like, no, it's, and I don't like the concept of voting for the lesser evil. That I don't even like that language. It's practicality. It's what's best for Orthodox Christians and a balance with if you have a party whose platform, right, despite whatever problems and critiques we former Republicans and conservatives, their platform message, who they say that they are, not what they do and how, one side is euphorically, remember what's said in the Metropolitan's homily? They're euphoric. It's a demonic euphoria. Supports butchering babies. You cannot actually work for the Democratic Party. There was a gentleman up here he was a Christian and he worked for the Democratic Party, but he was an abolitionist. I like that term better than pro-life. Against the murder of babies. They kicked him out. They're like, so you literally have to say the party ideology is we don't allow people who don't support butchering babies. One side celebrates genital mutilation of children, gender psychosis. A lot of these mass shootings are what I've talked about before, which was, somewhat predictive before the shoot. Obviously, I don't think the shooter they caught was a trans, but they did find he was pro Transformer and pro Antifa on the shells and stuff like that. These people are mentally ill, and we have one party basically saying, you're not mad. Sorry, we're not mad. You're mad. The crazy people aren't crazy. You're crazy. And we enabled this. It's in our universities. It's through the corporations that people who are in psychosis, who've lost their minds, who are suicidal and homicidal, are then told everybody's a tiny mustache man. Christians are white supremacists. They want to kill you. And then we're shocked that these people who are in psychosis and homicidal and suicidal kill Christians. Went to this, remember the last shooting at the Roman Catholic school? One party created that and supports that as their party platform. One side supports open border and weaponized migration. Not because they care for the poor. If you can't figure that out, like, I don't understand how dumb people, well, don't you think they care for the poor and immigrants? Absolutely not. Every Democrat in the America, every liberal was flying Ukraine flags in their bios, in their houses. I support Ukraine here, I support Ukraine here, until this poor Ukrainian refugee gets killed. And because that doesn't fit their narrative, now they don't support that Ukraine. Don't you see these people are virtue signalers? They don't care for the poor. They don't care for immigrants. Whether they how well they're self-aware of that, part of this is manufacturing consent, manufacturing dissent, like the program to. I mean, just look at Charlie Kirk. The guy was a middle of the road conservative, right? Ideologically, these people shouldn't have that big of a problem with. For them, he was literally Hilter. Why? Because they were programmed to believe that. Look at RFK. RFK was their guy. He was a Democrat. So was Trump. And now they literally hate him. Why? Not because they've thought this stuff out politically, because they aren't that conservative, right? They're not Republicans. They're programmed to hate. They're programmed to kill. They're programmed to weaponize migration to destroy our. One side supports soft crime. We saw this too. You know, Antifa are literally criminals that they're weaponizing and activating. Remember in COVID, they let out the criminals, right? And look at any Democrat city. Does it look like they care for the poor and the homeless? Do they have any policies that work? They don't, because they're concerned. They're demonically intoxicated, and they're concerned with discerning, they're under a possession, which is to destroy lives and communities, which keeps them in power. But they're useful idiots, because as we've seen in the Bolshevik Revolution, those are the first people that are put up on the firing range. One side hates traditional families. One side despises God. It's design. Jeers at prayers. We saw this in at the U.S. Capitol. When was this? December 9th or 10th or something like. Well, it was right after the Kirk. Republicans actually requested for prayer. Democrats shouted no. Who shouts no? Like, the Minnesota governor said, "We don't want your prayers." Like, do you not see this as demonic? And you think that you can vote for this party and be part of, like, one side is giddy about how a man just had his carotid artery blown up in front of his wife and kids. One side is living a morally inverted an inverted universe, calling what's good evil and evil good. This individual who wrote this said, if you're a Christian and still pretending to be above politics and tisk both sides. where you're afraid to stand up for fear of alienating people and being divisive. He nails it here. You are a coward and need to repent. Sooner or later, he says, God will cut you down. Not because God's going to, like, I'm going to punish you, but God is love. Hellfire is God's love. If you listen to the demons, and so I'm sorry, you can't. This should make it more clear than ever what's going on right now. That absolutely not. You can't be Orthodox Christian and be a liberal or Democrat. I mean, and what they'll do is they'll try to redirect. Well, look at the right's just as violent. I had somebody actually telling me that. Well, the right protest, when they protest, they're just as violent. I mean, look at January 6th. They had spikes on their flags. It's like, see what I mean? They're literally like, and you bring up to be like, you know, that was a setup. Even Nancy Pelosi came out and said, there's no amount of evidence you can tell these people. Oh, I don't listen to right-wing news. I don't listen to right-wing news either. I don't have to. Oh, it's both bad. I don't want it to be like, you made the comment. I don't need to watch the news to see the videos of the police officers with smiles opening and ushering people in there having friendly conversations with. I mean, how insane and dumb, how possessed are you that you can't actually see the... Who did it serve to benefit is, when we were on Cotel Stream, Jose was always saying. How did that work out? The right-wingers weren't causing violence. Like, they were, the only ones that were shot were the people. There's nothing you can say to these. You can't have a dialogue with, they will reframe it, that it's the right that's violent, that everybody is a tiny mustache man, and an NAZI. It's crazy that I've heard Orthodox Christians actually say, we should be able to, we have a right. It's always that there's the clue right there that that's Satan. I have a right. Me, my, I, me, mine. To be able to kill NAZIs. So what's the general principle? Anybody I disagree with? You think that's an Orthodox message? Anybody I disagree with, I get to kill? So you can get to kill leftists? Because you disagree? Well, no, they're not evil. Yes, they are. I just read you. They're not the one, like, it's not NAZIS's Neos and America that are doing the shootings and killing people and are violent. It's a left. And there's no Orthodox Christian or priest in their right mind that would ever say, well, yeah, well, that's, you're justified in doing that. You can kill them. You have to love them. You have to love your enemies. And it only means something when it's hard. Now, love doesn't mean enabling or not calling them out for moral atrocities and crimes. But you can't say we have to kill them. We get to kill them. And for the left and the liberal, they've been programmed. Anybody that disagrees with me is a fascist and an NAZI. And you have these videos where they're asking people, do you think you have a right to kill? Yes. So what does that mean? People who aren't, like Charlie Kirk, a middle-of-the-road conservative, is considered an NAZI. And they killed him. This kid... we found that out. Interesting enough, even like he looks conservative. Was shocked by the way he looks, and his family, they were liberals. Turns out his dad was telling him how we have these messages that Charlie Kirk was a white supremacist NAZI. And now we have a whole culture and party basically supporting that violence against NAZIs and white supremacists is justified, and then he does something. And then you think, well, I could still vote for that party that did that, that created that. You can't. I'm sorry. Well, it's political. You can't talk politics. You can't say that either. And I'll be danged if I'll have non-priests and laity telling me what we priests can do. I'm sorry, you don't get a right to. Yeah, thank you, Handmaid Leif. Um, Father Juvenile Repass, OCA. Did you see that? And notice what we clergy are saying. We're doing just the opposite of what this priest. I'm not celebrating. I've never celebrated even our enemies' deaths. Every death's a tragedy. Notice I've never taken you have to be this. I'm interpreting through a political lens. I've never done that too. I can talk about politics without interpreting because I'm not an ideologue. This Father Juvenile obviously is. You can see him basically saying he gets what he deserves. Like, does it look like of Christ to say something that it's demonic? And there's nothing wrong with saying, you can love these people and forgive them and still hold them to accountability. Right? Don't be an enabler. Forgiveness isn't like, well, I've just swept it under the rug. These people are hurting people. That's why their bishops need to be written. There's a thing going around, find Charlie Kirk's murderers. There are people, there's a DA up here in Billings, Montana, and a lot of social workers, interesting enough, which we always knew were liberal Democrats, celebrating, inciting violence. And there's a webpage where you turn them in. Like they should be, if somebody's committing a crime and they're a danger to society, they violate the law, both in the workplace and outside. They should be. That's not vengeful. It's not vengeance. God says, "Vengeance is mine." It's proper law and order. It's not being an anarchist. It's like they have to. If you saw a murder in front of you, you would be like, well, I forgive them, I'm not turning them in. And so these people are losing their jobs. They're being held accountable and that's justice. There's a difference between vigilantism, which we don't encourage, and vengeance, and being an upright citizen and be like, that's breaking the law and it's hurting individuals in society. You report the crime, hold these people accountable. If it's a priest, God help them, then obviously, yeah, the bishop needs to be contacted. Imagine somebody who's in charge of leading a parish and whose souls are in the hands participating in this demonic, just like we saw in the Metropolitan's homily, enabling violence, encouraging it, celebrating the death of somebody. It shouldn't even have to be said. I saw Father Moses said the same thing. I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk's politics. He was a Protestant. His theology, although he had a wonderful seemed to be interested in inquiring into orthodoxy with the Father John Strickland. But it's symbolic. It is, no pun intended, a turning point. It is an apocalypse. It's a revealing, just like COVID was, that, oh, well, we we could have diversity in the church politically. Somebody could be a Democrat or a liberal, and somebody could hold these views. What's significant about this event is it shows impossible. Absolutely impossible. Like, we're beyond that point. We're beyond the point of political dialogue, because they killed the last guy that. And that's significant. In public, on national TV. Right? That's why it's significant. People are like, why didn't you? We all mourn the deaths of the innocent babies murdered in the abortion Holocaust. We mourn the deaths of somebody brought this up. Why is this getting so much attention? Is because the symbolism beyond the what do they call that when the wave it breaks beyond, there's no turning back, like in terms of political dialogue, that the symbolic message was sent that liberals and the left, doesn't mean every single one who votes Democrat believes this, but your party does, and there's a general demonic possession over the entire, that we don't tolerate dialogue, moderate dialogue on these issues. We kill you. And then they celebrate it. That's the real, it's tragedy, right? Why it's getting so much significance. It wasn't that he just lost his life in front of his. It's profoundly significant that it's the end of political discourse between the two sides and two parties. That they will kill you. They tried to assassinate the president. They tried to, they're shooting, like, the trans terrorists are shooting and killing. They created this. And I want to show you something that relates to this, but I want to see what's going on in the chat real quick. And notice the people who always complain about the church shouldn't be political. First of all, it's never clear what that actually means. I would say, yeah, you shouldn't be like, you have to vote for this candidate and stuff like that. But to make a moral commentary, you know what these people would be? They'd be the people that would be like, well, we can't call out the Bolsheviks. That's political. As immoral. Antichrist. Well, it's taking a political position on. I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just saying we're beyond the point of return. Like, clearly, you like look what I just said about the Democratic Party and being liberal. Like, there's no way. Maybe in times past, like, there could be, it was possible. But the only people complaining about this are political idolaters, the left, the liberals, and orthodoxy. Why? Because they want their idols. They don't want to be told you can't. And this is why I want to ask, like, people say, we can't say people that they can't vote a certain way. I'm not telling them how to vote. I'm saying, or what, like, candidate. I'm saying that you can't. The people who object against that be like, so you literally could create any party whatsoever, and you're saying that the Orthodox clergy couldn't make a moral and spiritual commentary on that group, couldn't be supported. That everybody can choose, no matter how evil and bad. How about the NAZIs, right? Because that's all they can think about. Oh no, but not them. Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, that's the exclusion. Like, come on, give me a break. These people are not obviously serious, and nobody should be listening to them on. I don't care. I don't care what you say. Your opinion doesn't matter. We're beyond that. We're beyond your opinions. And look at this, related to this was one of my mom's friends had sent me this because the guy who made the point was a good point, and then what do you get? Like somebody has to come on, and it's just like this just demonstrates exactly what I'm talking about. He says Snipe feels like some sort of invisible line had been crossed that we didn't even know was there. That's why I said it's apocalyptic. It was revealing. That's a good point. And then you got this guy, which you can just guess how many boosters he's had. To be clear, I'm opposed to any violent act. But did you all feel shame when the Democratic Minnesota State Assemblyman was murdered in home by somebody impersonating police? Of course we did. Like, what is the matter with you? I don't remember seeing a lot of condemnation when the innocent public servant was gunned down. Now, what's interesting, he's going to go, notice how the liberals and left shape the narrative. Anything doesn't agree, it's, oh, that's that's false news and stuff like that. I mean, we haven't learned from COVID that they do, like, obviously. I know the details of this. This guy's already assuming, because the Minnesota State Assemblywoman was a Democrat, and that this guy who had killed the person, which was a tragedy, like, yes, he's... Well, he was registered a Republican in 2008 or something like that. He voted for Trump. That's all they need. See, he's right-wing vibe. Any evidence you present, you do know that he turned against the right and Republicans and hated Trump. You do know the reason why he shot, in his mind, the Assemblywoman, because she turned against the Democratic Party. So notice how they reframe it. Any evidence that's against their position, they hide, right? So, of course we did. But it, as tragic as that event was, it wasn't a symbolic turning point in America and American politics. It wasn't live. He wasn't the person. The person killed wasn't the last dialoguer. He wasn't the last moderate. That's what's so profound about the Charlie Kirk, right? That's why it's getting attention. It doesn't mean that this is not as equal trial and that we didn't feel terrible about. They don't care about that. They've already got their positions in narrative. And then look at this. These are literally the talking points. This is what I mean. These people are demonically possessed and programmed. It's all the same lines. There's no original thought. And what did the Metropolitans say? The demons present them that it's their own original thought when it's literally an outside messenger, demon. Charlie Kirk made it very clear he was okay with a few people dying every year by gun violence to protect the Second Amendment. He didn't say that. No, he's a statistic that... I mean, what if somebody said, I hate cars? I'm like, oh, really? Why? Because more people die in automobile accidents than, anything or whatever. And you quote something like the Doctrine of Double Effect, which is weird. I had a dream about the Doctrine of Double Effect. It's something in ethics where the intended goal of doing something, let's say like like in medicine, this comes up in bioethics a lot, is not to kill somebody. It's not even a utilitarian word, the overall benefits of it or something like that. It kind of gets around the whole issue of consequentialism, that it's inevitable that certain people are going to die on the operating table. The goal of operating and doing medicine in the hospital and surgery is not to kill people. That's a double effect. The effect is to save lives. But it's an inevitable consequence, we'll lose some. So that's what this guy's doing. The reason why we have Second Amendment is not only is it obviously a constitutional right, it's to save lives. And what Charlie Kirk was saying is a doctrine of double effect. People will die of gun violence. But that's not the goal of the Second Amendment, is... And removing that amendment would be disastrous. More people would die. So what does he do? He reframes it. I mean, how demonic. He was okay with people dying. You know people are going to die from cars. The fact that you died in a car accident, you're just a casualty of your own philosophy about car driving. Moron. Demonic moron. And then you're just a statistic. I'm not going to celebrate his death. So this is the other line that's going around. You didn't come up with that thought. You're literally a tool of the demons and the Democrats. They're all going around with the same line. I do not celebrate his death, but I won't mourn him either. And the fact that I'm surprised nobody's called him out on this. And I'm not going to lie. If I had to confess you publicly, I wanted to respond. That's why I want to warn you, just looking into my own heart. You see this and it brings you into your passions. I was upset. I wanted to go on and mock this guy. Like, well, we obviously know how you vote and how many boosters you've had. And I had to check myself. Don't do it. I'm not going to listen to you. And it's just going to bring you into the demonic conversation of... However, we can talk about and analyze this spiritually and philosophically. There's nothing wrong with that. But as Metropolitan said, don't get into it, right? Like, don't go too far in obsessing in the demonic and studying it. I think the analogy could be applied here. Do not be responding to this. But if I could just please pray that encourage you guys, like, don't be talking to these people. And it's in me. I wanted to go on and actually, to what end? It would bring me down. Congratulations, they brought you down into the pit. Also, what makes it highly symbolic and significant, it was publicized, the horror, and they're playing it over and over again. Yeah, run to pray. This is the time to be praying. Go inward. Again, it doesn't mean we can't have, between us and the people in our parish, conversation about what's going on. But don't engage with do not go for the rage bait. Go into prayer. It is a death cult. I would love somebody to like come on right now and actually give me the argument why you think that you could actually at this point be a liberal or vote Democrat. I'm willing to be corrected. But that's what's so significant. Be like, we're way beyond that. I want to share something else. Let me see if I got any super chats. Also, I want to read to you from president of our college. I think it was from we lost we got a new president. He had to step down for family issues. So the Bishop of Helena, who's I know he's Roman Catholic, but he's a good guy, and he's he's a traditional bishop, and I mean, he's not doing the Latin mass. So you try to catch it, they're like, he's not traditional. It's like, all right, guy, but like on moral issues and everything else, yeah. And I've had nothing but good conversations with Bishop Vetter. Destiny, $5. Thank you for the spiritual clarity today. Thank you. Matthew donates $5. Oh. He then began to say that Charleston was a language barrier and that we need to focus on love and unity with Christian. Yeah, well, okay, well then you got. Just be like, I don't want to talk to you. I know what you're saying. I don't want to have it. I don't want to hear it. We just need to all kumbaya unite in the Abrahamic Faith Center. Ask about the Fifth Ecumenical Council. The whole Fifth Ecumenical Council was to clear up the language. It was a language barrier, right? And that was the clarification. Why are they rejecting it? It's not a language issue. But Matthew, thank you. I wrote. He's a retired professor. That was up here in Montana. He's an orthodox. He'd moved, but him and his wife had made a. And again, it's just these people. I mean, somebody posts something where it's just compassion. Like, we may not agree with Charlie Kirk's political views. I would say that I'd warn quote unquote conservatives and orthodoxy who are mocking him too. Shame on you, because there's a certain group in orthodoxy that are ideologues that all the world's problems are the tiny hat people in Zionism. They cannot see beyond that. Well, he was supporting. By the way, the Zionists are not the ones running the whole world. There's several oligarchs and elites, right? That's just one aspect of it. But like, you're so hyper focused on that. These are the people that fell for Brother Nathaniel. You're ideologues. And so now they're like saying terrible stuff about Charlie Kirk. I didn't agree with his politics. I thought it was terrible, the stuff that he said promoting Zionism. What you don't know is he started turning against it at the end. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, be a little bit more, just be quiet. Be a little bit more charitable. Again, the reason why it's a big deal is the symbolic significance of this. And anybody puts anything up, I'm praying for showing any level of compassion. These demons come on, just dig into. So there's a dear Orthodox professor friend of mine used to live in Montana that retired and moved away. And same thing, him and his wife posted just some compassionate thing, and the demons came out, and I wrote him, I said, Lord have mercy. You have some deluded friends writing your posts. We have liberals and Dems cheering on the death of Charlie Kirk, and yet you have people chastising you and your wife for correctly connecting this sort of violence to the left. Shame on them, I said. Talk about gaslighting and no self-awareness. I do like that clip that Andrew Wilson had when he was calling it that pro Skittles. It's like, people are tired of, like, the gaslighting. Oh, they're not mentally. We don't want to talk about, like, we're beyond conversation. Why? Because you've been gaslighting us for this for years. You know, I pointed out, I've taught political philosophy. I can prove that the left's origins, the Jacobins, in the French Revolution through Fourier and Proudhon, Marx, the influence of the Frankfurt School. Do you know where the political term radicalism comes from? Always been violent. That's one of their principles. They're revolutionaries. It was formed out of the French Revolution, like radicalism was. That's where we get the terms right and left, from the French Revolution. It's a fundamental principle of the left. Now, I don't think that Dems have always kind of had that. I thought, you know, it'd be interesting to see the influences in the last 60, 70, 80 years of how the parties actually changed. And I do make a distinction between, you know, the left and, you know, Democrats and stuff. But they have the party's changed, obviously. Now, what is it? What is the arch? There's tiny mustache men and fascists everywhere. That's, in the liberals, it's just like, everyone's fascism, and that gives them a right to kill and do anything they want if they deem it's fascist. And I've always said, I'm like, you keep pushing that narrative, you're going to create exactly what you hate. You get the exact opposite. Do you know historically how fascism came to be in Spain and Italy, Romania, and Germany? Right? They're all different forms of fascism, but like, generally speaking, I'm like, I'll give it to you, I'll put it in. Because the left, they push to, that is the logical political consequences of the left when they push too hard. Historically, politically, that's, so it's like, I actually have compassion for my enemies. I'm like, I wish you wouldn't do it. Like, it's not going to end well for you. And I want to qualify that. That is not advocating violence or encouraging any of you. You can't do that. I'm making it an observational, factual statement. I'm like, this is what's going to happen. It happens historically. Like, for the love of God, stop it. Stop hitting yourself. Stop. You're going to, like, kill yourself. That's what it's a plea of compassion and mercy for my enemies, that I'm like, I don't want you to go that way. And I'm not saying like the people are going to rise up vigilante. I think that politically, that's what it'll move. Like, it's just, if you're beyond, nobody's going to fall for, like, we're beyond the gaslighting, smoke and mirrors, deflections and red herrings, reframing the narrative like this guy. Like, nobody's falling for it anymore. And that's the symbolic significance of this. I'm like, the full force of the law is going to, like, it, that you're going to be dealt with. Like, I really don't think, I think for the most part, right-wing conservatives are pretty cool-headed. I saw Ubi made a good, let me see if I can pull this up because I thought it was a good point. Ubi said the right will not rise up. There's not going to be any vigilantism. I really don't think. They'll just use rage posts because why? They're law-abiding. Generally speaking, they're law-abiding citizens, and they fear the consequences they know will be applied to them, but not to the left or minorities. They also lack an identity beyond not libtard. He says the right has been slow to realize that power is a zero-sum game. This is why it's like, I'm not thinking conservatives are going to do anything. Because they fail to realize. The everyday Republican conservative fails to realize that if you don't take power, someone else will. The libertarians are the same way. If you don't indoctrinate your children with an ideology, someone else will. You don't win against cheaters by following the rules, and the left are serial cheaters. That's a good point. However, I do believe politically, in terms of the law, like, nobody's going to care anymore that, well, that's not fair. A cheater can't say it's not fair. Somebody's been gaslighting you, and a party that kills you for dialogue isn't going to be like, it's not, well, you're a hypocrite, you're not dialoguing. It's like, nobody cares what you're saying anymore. The fact that people are being turned in for breaking the law in the workplace and outside the workplace and be like, oh, cancel culture. Nobody cares anymore. And by the way, cancel culture is not turning people in for breaking the law. But nobody cares. Oh, you guys are hypocrite. Nobody cares what you like. So I'm saying it's beyond. You can't do it anymore. Nobody's falling for it. And I'll make it clear. As clergy, I'm telling you, don't fall for the rage bait. Certainly, like, don't ever engage in violence. Make that clear. All I'm pointing out is the fact that people aren't going to tolerate it anymore. I'm just making an observational statement. I don't like it. I don't want it that way. And that's why it's a tragedy. It's gone too far. That's pointing out it's a demonic possession. When people can't be reasoned with anymore, force is applied. That's just a historical, ontological fact. And I have compassion for even the Lord God. Have mercy on your souls and your lives for the liberals, and you've dug your own grave, and it's sad. That's another tragedy. I'm actually really sad that we're beyond the point of dialogue, and that, unfortunately for you, like, that's what's coming. And let's pray. None of this, again, is beyond like I said, what's impossible for men. I'm speaking in terms of men, it's beyond that. But what's impossible with man is possible with God. And I have hope against hope. You know, the very fact that what we saw in what happened with Russia gives us hope. Also, this is where orthodoxy thrives. If we go inward, if we go to prayer, if we acquire the Holy Spirit, give this an opportunity. It's when it's hard that it means something. So it's not a black pill. It's not all doom and gloom. It's being realistic and nuanced and giving you hope that it's like, here it is. This is where it matters. That's what I'm trying to encourage all of you. Questions about that so far? Yeah, nobody cares that they're crying and complaining. And that I don't feel sad. I'm like, you dug your own grave. What I do feel sad about is like what's actually politically probably coming for them. I actually feel bad for, but it's not right. They, like I said, they didn't see But there is hope. Notice what Metropolitan said. Some of those people came to their senses, just like the prodigal son. He came to himself, scripture says. We will see that. I think we'll see people that come to their senses and repent. And some of those people in Russia became, martyrs. And but forgive them, Lord, they know not what they're doing. Like, they're under a possession. They don't see what they're actually engaged in, and influenced by and possessed by it right now. That they're not their own thoughts. And we have to go through this to have, like, Russia's spiritual renewal. I don't know if, like, we have to, like, it's provided as a way. And it's a separating of the sheep from the goats, the chaff from the. That's what COVID did too, if you remember. So you have to celebrate and say, "Blessed be the name of the Lord," right? When these things happen, because it's like it'll be revealing. It's now time. Those who are orthodox by name will be revealed, and they'll be separated. And so don't get doom and gloom about, be like, just get ready to spiritually fight. The war is on. Like, that's what, give yourself the pep talk. Rally up the troops, spiritual warriors. Like, that's what we're seeing. And there's sort of like, there's an almost an anxiety spiritually going into battle, but like, we're here. We're at the crossroads, and you're gonna have to make a choice. Who do you serve? Let me see if we got any more super chats. We do. Wow, Austin C, $30. Holy smokes. This is the best take I've heard yet. My question is, how do we approach evil behavior in the real world with a sense of meekness and humility? Is there a balance in tolerance and humility? Or should confrontation be avoided? Well, I think that's a great question. I think it's kind of what the stream is about. Be watchful. Okay, we're in war. Spiritual war. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principality, darkness. We got to keep watch. Number one. We have to be slow to anger and our passions. That's one of the things we're watching. Okay. We need courage, though. We need wisdom, which will allow us to make discernment. And one of the ways to get that, to know when to speak, when to engage, is you have to be passionless. That's why I said, like, I need, and all of us need, a clear head right now. And if I get angry and start arguing with somebody over something really, like, sensitive, I'm not going to be thinking through the solution clearly. I think one of the things that we do, we speak out morally again, like we're having the conversation about that. But notice I'm not arguing and engaging with these demoniacs online, because I know I'm like, I can't do that. But we can talk about it. We can call it out. We can have the conversation. We can do the analysis like we did. I think that's good. And we need to pray. We need to wait. If you're in a war, are you going to rush out into battle without any plan, without any strategy? All y'all need to calm down, watch yourselves, your passions, and strategize. Speak to your spiritual father, your generals. And think about it. Before you act, we got to think. Before you say something, think about it. Slow it down. That's what I'm saying. That is humility. It's not I, me, mine. That's what Metropolitan said. That I'm right. I think I'm doubting myself when I do that. I don't know what to say. I need to slow it down, right? Already there's an act of humility in there and meekness. I don't want to just act or say something, but I want to be courageous too. I don't want to be a coward. It's the balancing between all the virtues. And it's wisdom that puts those all in the right order and when to. So, humility isn't, I don't call somebody out or make a statement publicly about that something's morally evil. That's the humility. It's not me first. It's not my own thoughts. It's the orthodox phronema, right? First, it's my spiritual father and the church and my priest that are first, guiding me on. It's my prayers and fasting that are first. That's humility. Why? I'm humbling myself, the I, and putting God first. And then God exalts you, and God says he'll give you the words. That's what we're praying for. Lord, give me the words that you promised. And he says, yes, in this way. I think so. Great question, Austin. Thank you so much for that. We answered that question, but I'll address it again. DSFSDSDF. Did I get that? I'm baptized. It is forbidden to marry non-Orthodox. Well, Saint, I need to let you know this. Saints are not binding. By the way, a bishop isn't even binding. Right? That's not how orthodoxy works. Saint Nicodemus is a holy person that reveals the phronema of the church in his statements and is edifying, but he cannot bind by his statements. He does not actually have the authority to do that. Neither does a bishop. A synod does. Keep that in mind. So that's when people were like, well, your patriarch said that Muslims and Jews and Christians worship that. I'm like, first of all, it's not my patriarch. Number two, a bishop does not have the authority to create doctrine and bind. He has the authority to apply the canons. He has the authority to in his autocephaly to deal with administrative. But as far as doctrine and binding, only a synod of bishops can do that. Also, it's a weird modern idea that the words of the saints and the canons are these abstract, it's actually very Jewish and pharisaical. Are absolutes. I gave a conversation about this on Patrick's. Our ethical system is not ethical monism. It's not. That means we're ethical pluralists. That doesn't mean relativism. That means the rules, right? The general rules are not absolute, which means not applied everywhere at all places in the same way at the same degree. We have a virtue epistemology and virtue ethics. We have the rules as principles, and through virtue and how the structure of the church works, they're applied. And this is exactly why priests are telling you not to apply the canons and read the canons, because you apply it to your own destruction. And it's being, right, we see in the church that it's not Yeah, you don't understand canons. Canons are not absolute. We're not Kantians. You have a very modern mindset of how to. That's why you're being told by clergy, stop playing around and trying to figure this out by yourself. Like you don't have the spiritual or intellectual maturity to understand how. And a synod can overrule. Like that's what I said. Canons are not absolutes. It's not encouraged. They're rules. You probably should not. But you don't understand how canons work or the sayings of the saints or referring to canons and stuff like that. The bishops have the authority and always have. Like you're just ignoring history of how synodality in the episcopacy works with regards to canons. Now, of course, they can't do that with like the Trinity or something like that. But again, you should be able to see that these are practical applications in terms of the life of the church. Always, the church and the episcopacies had the ability to be like, we're not applying it that degree. I mean, the refutation of your position is if canons are the way that you say they are. First of all, there would be no priests. You know, if you ever touched yourself, like there's a canon that forbids from priests. Well, I hate to tell you this, you know, it's unfortunate, but most priests have. You wouldn't be able, priests wouldn't be able to ride horses. You couldn't. There's so many. If somebody had an abortion, it's like 15 years out of the. It's just stupid, and I'll be danged if I have laity lecture me on canon law. I'm sorry, I'm calling you out. Like you need to humble yourself and to keep your mouth quiet. I mean to be rude and mean. I am your authority on that, and I'm telling you, you need to stop, like for your own spiritual good. You may not like to hear that, but you have a choice. You can take the wisdom that I'm offering, or you can go your own way, and you can interpret the canons straight into destruction. And I'm sorry for that. And I would say too, I can see that it's a demonic distraction. Leave it alone. We had somebody a long time ago in the Discord that was getting caught up in some theological debates and stuff, and told them, I'm like, leave it alone. Even if you're like, it's a demonic trap. It's like, we talked about this in catechesis. They're getting, demons get you to look over here, look away. All while giving you the feeling that like you're correct about what you're thinking and saying. So for your own spiritual edification, you don't have to listen to me. That's the dang thing about free will. You're free to not, I just don't advise it. And again, there is no principle in orthodoxy that it's good. It's the same with the divorce, too, right? It's not encouraged. It's it's bad. There's an element of, we realize that. Question is it allowed? The bishops have the discretion to allow it or not. They have the authority. The synod has the authority to. All right. Thank you, though. Good topic. And Jay and I have gone over the canon issues a million times. Yeah, just put first things first. You don't need to figure this out. Put first things first. Put the fundamentals first. Concert as my friend says, constantly going to services. Confession, your prayer life. That's my advice if you want to take it. All right, well, let's move on. a million texts all of a sudden. Go back to Charlie Kirk. Let's go back to what that guy was saying. Gun deaths are worth it to preserve the Second Amendment. Do you see the eagle flying over? That's the rule. Do you know what absolutism, like an ethical monism is? Yeah, it's a rule. Can there be exceptions to the rules? Yes. How old are you, first of all? It's also called the fallacy of accident. Yeah, there's a real meaning to the rule. I'd love for you to see how you're going to prove that you always apply rules in the absolute degree everywhere at all times. Jack the Guitar God. Hey, speaking about guitars, that's so frustrating. Remember how I like to sing songs to you sometimes on the guitar? I wasn't playing a song off YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music. I played you a song. I actually get copyright things. I can't even sing to you anymore. This weekend, I would like to put up candles for Charlie Kirk and his family. This will be the first time I'll ever do so. I just got baptized 2 weeks. What should I pray or say? That's a good. There you go. Prove that there are rules to. You're an idiot. I'm sorry. You are totally deluded. It's called the fallacy of accident. All right, I have a prayer. I think I have a prayer. I bet you're 17 years old. Good. At least you have some humility. The ability to be rebuked and corrected. Thank you. Thank you for admitting that you're wrong and willing to be corrected and instructed. There's hope. I appreciate that. Nothing wrong with saying that you're wrong. That's not a sign of weakness. I have an easy refutation for you, and then you're going to keep your mouth shut after that. All right? Because you have this retarded idea that rules are absolute. There's no exceptions. And yeah, 26-year-olds is young. So you're 10 years, this is 9 years older than I actually thought you were. But you said rules have no exceptions. There's a rule that you're to give back property to its rightful owner. You borrow your neighbor's hunting rifle. Your neighbor has a psychological break and has their family tied up and says they're going to kill them, and everybody in the neighborhood. Then prove it. The church is full of, so you're just ahistorical. Like, how blind do you have to be? The church's whole history is not applying, is having exceptions to the rules and not applying them. So prove it. All you're doing is making a bunch of assertions and you're embarrassing yourself. Like, if the church is full, the whole history is full of how the church applies canons and does exceptions, right? And allows, then you prove it. The onus is on you. Evening prayers. I mean, you just keep like you're exactly like the atheist. Just keep. I didn't ask for you. We know what your position is. I didn't ask for you to restate it. And I made the distinction between Christology and dogmatic statements, right? And the practicalities of. All right, you're gone. Time for stupid idiots. Perfect example. There's nothing you can say to somebody who thought that they were right in their own. You really think, first of all, you can look at history. Of course, when it comes to Christology and dogmatic statements, so these people have no nuances, are different than terms of, is this allowed? Is this marriage going to be allowed? Is this, what sort of penance is going to be? Is this going to be, are you too dumb to, you can't see nuances on that? It's like speaking to atheists. I don't have time for it. I don't have the patience. I'm not a saint. Have nothing to do with a contentious man. Like you can't keep your mouth shut and receive instruction. Like, then get out. I don't have time to deal with your nonsense. 26 years old, jeez. Oh, you're all pre. This is exactly what leads to these people becoming schismatics. Everybody's wrong. All the priests, everybody, I'm the last true Orthodox Christian left. That's what we got with this guy. Congratulations. Why can't I find... There's special needs here. Special needs. We have prayers for special... We have prayers for people like you. Special needs. I'm trying to find the prayer that you asked for. How much you want to bet? Notice these people always come in with like a gentle question, and then what is it? They double it, and then they reveal. How much you want to bet that guy's genuine Orthodox? Yeah, McChubbs, let me thank you for making that point. St. Claus have 25, and I think you made a case. Okay, so it's similar to like ad hominems. I'm not saying so an ad hominem. I always like to make the joke. Um, here's an ad hominem. Here's what's not. An ad hominem is you're retarded, therefore your argument's retarded. Well, it doesn't necessarily follow that. I mean, think about it. person being made in the image of God, it's impossible to be 100% wrong 100% of the time. Just because somebody's a slow boy doesn't mean, therefore, what they're saying is incorrect. However, to be like your argument's retarded, and so you're probably retarded too, is not a ad hominem. Anyways, likewise, what I would say is no. It's being in your teens and early 20s doesn't mean that everything you say is stupid. However, it is interesting that when I see a certain type of reasoning or lack of reasoning, that can be a sign of immaturity. That has been like, one of the reasons why is probably because you're this age. Do you see the difference? So that's why, like, just because you're 25 doesn't mean that you're dumb and can't actually read. You were able to see that. What I'm saying is the type of thinking, like, it's immaturity, and so you're probably young. But not every young person is immature and reasons in that way. I don't know any other than Father Vasilios Thermos, who gave me all these books here. I met some priests in Greece and stuff, but he was the only one that was probably in contact with more regularly. So yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to. Here's a prayer though. Now you can change this because he's not orthodox. Sometimes I adapt prayers. Like, obviously, when we say servant of God, we mean a baptized. So perhaps change that. Oh, good Lord, remember, um, maybe your child, like, because we're all children of God. And forgive them, all in which they have transgressed in their lives, for only you are without sin and can grant rest to the departed. In your divine wisdom and love for mankind, you bestow all things and provide for all the needs of man. O Creator, rest the soul of the departed child of God. We're all children of God. Charlie Kirk. And because he did believe in the Lord, you can say this, who have placed their hope in you. We pray that the Lord knows his heart. O Lord, the fashioner, the creator of all. And give, yeah, something like that. So you can kind of like read some of the general prayers for the deceased and the departed, and kind of switch, make sure that you don't use language like handmaidens, God, servant of God, or something like that. Oh, God bless you. Yeah, prayers, praise the Lord. Prayers, grace, and mercy, that his prayers to and worship of him can heal us. Oh, remember your icon. Interesting. Yeah, forgive me, like, I know people call me, like, Father Deacon Patience, but, like, obviously I'm perfected. I just. What is the verse? Hold on. Honestly, I'm gonna try to find this verse. Is it Matthew or Mark? I can't remember now. But Matthew 10:14 does say, if anyone will not welcome you and listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake off the dust off your feet. And there's also one like admonishing, right? And they don't listen. I don't have the patience to keep just arguing with somebody who's obviously not going to receive instruction from their authorities. Doesn't mean authorities are infallible, but like there's a spirit that you can pick up on. I have to remove it. I have to walk away from not strong enough to just keep going. I don't think it's fruitful for the conversation either. So if you can't shut up and take instruction and be rebuked, right? This is my home. You're not welcome. Like, you're not welcome to come in here and bring discord and disrupt my family. I'm speaking you guys in the chat being my family. Like, I was telling another deacon because basically I'm like so old now. Going October, 9 years in the priesthood as being a deacon. I find myself I'm the first proto deacon and like all the time. And I had told like, some of the other deacons were making mistakes. I'm like pretty laid back until I'm not. Like, I am a laid back, and my wife says, it's surprising sometimes when you do chastise and rebuke. And I'm like, they need it. And because it's like, I hadn't seen that side. I'm like, you'll get it. If it's needed, you'll get it. And you will be say your attitude and your spirit that you're bringing into this house and this YouTube channel is not welcome here, and I have the authority to do that. In your teachings, pearls before swines. I remember somebody said too, like online a couple of years ago, another guy trying to be like cool, and then he was screenshotting and then posting all around, be like, look at this is the way clergy, this is deacon speaks. And it was just pearl clutching, virtue signaling type of stuff that I called somebody out morally that, and then it's of course like, would Jesus ever do? Yeah, Jesus wasn't a hippie effeminate. I'm sorry. Like, look at what his saints do. Like, they're harsher than I am. Pretty laid back compared to that. I mean, how dare clergy speak this way and call people? I'm like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, that's part of my office. But I have the authority. And he clipped that or screenshot and started posting around and be like, you think? And I'm like, no, that's true. If anybody has the authority and the right to call you out, isn't it the clergy? See this anti-hierarchical kind of, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Occasionally I will. I'll have to, unfortunately, that young gentleman, I want to say gentleman. All right. In your teaching, how did you balance faith with topics opposed to orthodoxy? Did you often explain those? You mean as a professor? Like, I don't have a runny nose. It's my wife is gonna give me a Kleenex. It's my mustache hair keeps coming up and tickling my face. Forgive me. Don't touch your face. Oh. No, I don't. I don't teach an Orthodox university. Never have. You have a beard brush in the bathroom. I should. It's not my job being employed to relate this to orthodoxy. I do slip it in sometimes when it's relevant. I'm like, I'm teaching the students how to think, not what to think. I give them the tools and we analyze different philosophers and topics And then I gave it over to them. I'm like, apply the rules and tools that we use to analyze this. Orthodoxy might be brought up, like, for example, we'll probably have in class when we're in Greek philosophy right now, and the Greek conception of God. I may be like, orthodoxy is much more like what Plato said, the gods beyond being. I might say something like that once in a while. Although, interesting enough, before class, students were asking me orthodox questions. I was like, oh, these are cool icebreakers. But yeah, it's not. You should make your beard into dread. Do you know I used to have dreads when I was from 18 to 21 years old? So I'm over that. What would Jesus do and say? I don't know. Would Jesus make fun of somebody's physiognomy? Well, just because he wouldn't doesn't mean that it's like bad. Also, another thing too that people don't get is an ethical principle, what's called supererogation. They have this either or. It's either what the perfect man would do, and everything short of that is a sin. It's not. That's not true. That's like this weird kind of Augustinian, right? Augustine had this because the good is there's only one. There's not multiple goods. Any kind of looking away from the good, the sunum bonum, and its unity, is a sin. So he struggled with obviously sexual acts in the marriage bed is being kind of necessary evils because it wasn't like contemplating the sunum bonum, right? Like, so this is the problem with supererogation is there's acts that are over and above the moral duty. That doesn't mean because you're not doing acts of supererogation that therefore it's wrong. So I just thought about that right now. Like, there's a mistake when people are like, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus make fun of people? It's like, no, but that's super. It doesn't mean that there's not actually appropriate times to. Parents do this well. Parents make fun and shame their children, right? And go overboard, then that's not wisdom and discernment, right? To be like, Jesus would never do that, so I'd like, that's great parenting. They've done well. Surf. I surfed a lot, especially right before I came up here. And again, it's a typical liberal leftist kind of tactic that even conservatives will do. They don't actually care what Jesus and do like in the moral life. They're weaponizing that. That's why people who do that have the dark triad. But I'm like, I can see right through it, especially if you dealt with enough of like, I know who you are. I can see you. You're trying to manipulate me emotionally. I wish we could read my. We should do a stream where we read my psychological evaluation on. It's actually awesome. Which is so funny that the haters and like somebody came up with some stupid lie that like he's off his meds. Remember that? His psych med. I'm like, I've never been on psych meds. Ever. Never taken. I have a objector that you can look it up. Like, I had to before I got ordained a state certified psychological event. Passed with flying colors. Like, so a bunch of demonic liars out there. So he hit his head and he's not. I'm like, it's psychological. I've never had mental health problems. This is so stupid. What an easy. So anybody just could like, what a stupid. Anyways, wouldn't it be fun though to actually read the psychological eval online? And it's interesting because it says stuff that like maybe I've never thought about before I got the report. This is back like when I was ordained in 2016. I had to go. Um, Reading, I'm like, yeah, that's true. That's definitely me. That's what does not react well to emotional manipulation. I'm like, yep, not gonna use, you know, trying to manipulate and BS. And I think, part of me is why that went into philosophy is the difference between this philosopher and the sophist. The sophist is a BSer. It's not, they're concerned with power and manipulating. I hate it. Um, I don't think so. The OCA does, I was ordained in the Romanian OCA. I'm just on loan to Bishop Maxim, the Serbs and Serb. Uh, Not all jurisdictions do. The OCA does. Also have to do background checks every year. So all you stupid liars and haters out there, I mean, obviously, it's easily falsifiable. Don't have a criminal record. I'm not crazy. You just don't like what I'm telling you. You don't like me calling you out on your sins and heresies. So you slander me. Like, that's fine. Your hate makes me stronger. Like, it just doesn't end well for you. Like, your spiritual life doesn't go well when you lie and slander. But like for me, I'm used to having my name dragged through the mud. Like, just don't hurt my parishioners or my family. Don't pick on people. Like that I do, that I will stand, but like you're free to persecute me and say all manner of evil against me. Like, it's the way of the cross. I signed up for it. I know. It's just I wish you wouldn't. Not for my sake, for your sake. That's why I pray for you, my enemies. Like, please just stop. Praying for the left and liberals. I really do want the best for you. Yes, you are annoying. Um, but annoying's not, it's just an emotion. I want your salvation, and I don't want you to be engaged in stuff that's self destructive. That's what love is. And I'm willing to allow you to crucify me. If that's what it takes to save, like, you can do it. You can drag my name through the mud. Like, I wish you wouldn't. Um, but I signed up for it. That's why I'm wearing black. Death to the world. I'm trying to die every day. And forgive me, I'm not a saint. I make mistakes, and just, pray for me. But it's not about how many times that you fall, but like, get up. Get up, take up your cross, and follow him. Um, that's repentance. Do you want to be healed? Lord, yes, please. Um, I believe, Lord, forgive my unbelief. All right. I think we have some other super chats to read. I'm sorry about my mustache hair. It's driving me crazy. All right. Going back to our topic, then we'll depart. Um, what? No, I'm reading my notes. I wrote some notes. By the way, so we were going back to Charlie Kirk's statement. He didn't say, I mean, notice the reframing. Having guns is worth killing a few people. And then they're like, well, he got what's coming from him I'll not celebrate, but I'm not mourning it. Okay? That's not what he said. It is what I brought up early, the doctrine of double effects. Yes, it's important. Like, just like cars, just like, even hospitals, like, people are going to die. But that's not what's being aimed at when you do surgery, when you drive a car. That's what he said. Second of all, you can't infringe on Second Amendment. They have, though. That's what's interesting. Gun control is an infringement. So why not infringe? Like, if we're gonna be like controlling, right? And this is a consequentialist. They all have like a consequentialist kind of utilitarian attitude. Well, the overall balance, though, you see, it's a numbers game is that we have to do these things. All right. If you can do that, if they're not absolutes in terms of the Constitution, and you can infringe, and why don't we work on the First Amendment? Let's start with the first one and then move down. Like, yeah, you're not like, oh, you can't do that, right? That's why these people don't care about principles. That's why nobody's like, well, you believe. They don't care because they are not, the person accusing you of being inconsistent, which isn't true, doesn't care about consistency. He was also criticized for being a racist. That's demonic, huh? Yeah. Racist. That's what these people look like when they're monks, dude. Which is interesting because it sounds like a swine, which is what the demons were put into. Because he said Martin Luther King Jr. was awful. You know the joke, right? Oh, we can't criticize that. Like, so, I mean, it's because if you criticize anybody of color, but he obviously had issues, like anybody in the right mind, it's like, come on. Oh, he's a because he decried the Civil Rights Act in 1965. Again, not being honest and reframing it, and they obviously reframe it in a way that his criticism was how it was implemented. Its intended purpose did not serve and do well for the black communities. So notice they don't care about the truth. They're going to reframe it. Why? Because it's all in terms of power words. Because if you're an R, a recent, right, there is no evidence to consider. There's no fact, like, it's a spell. It casts a spell over. That's why I call them spell words. You're immediately fired, discredit, sent off to the camps and on the firing line, shot. Like, that's what they. Contemporary compendium, $5. If pew-pews need to be regulated because they can take lives, shouldn't we also regulate women concerning the... Yeah, exactly. So his criticism is that the Civil Rights Act was abused by the government and didn't serve well for the black community. So it's actually care for the black community. No, they don't care about that. Also, I'm looking at, because it's delayed, I'm actually looking at my video. It does look pretty funny. Me pretending to be the possessed liberal swine reading. Right-wing activists about the the COOF. Right? Oh, he's a racist because he used China virus. Um, sir, do you have a license for that one? Kirk also reported compared. Well, okay, it was from China, so whatever. Kirk also compared a pandemic vaccine requirements to apartheid, so he was attacked for that. Um, he criticized DI, that makes him a racist. Like, just, I mean, these are all middle of the road. Just see how they reframe it though. They take out what he actually said, like they do. Remember, there's people um good on both sides. Remember what they do with, like, they're just constantly doing this stuff. That's what people. Oh, he condemned Juneteenth. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Nobody wants to have a conversation with you anymore. Like, I think people see it. They're beyond. You're just gonna lie, reframe everything. You're never gonna look at the like. I mean, in terms of political discourse, there's nothing that could be said to. That's. It's a way of it. All right. Other questions. That's kind of my summary of today of the Kirk situation. My moral, spiritual advice for for you in these kind of difficult times. Uh, and who's this? What is this guy saying? I remember someone pointing out that clerk's office is unclear. I'm a Sims fan, so I was disappointed with. I'm not getting the clerk's office. Am I missing? This guy's got to be responding to something. Sometimes people leave comments and it's like codes or something, riddles. I'm like, oh, maybe it's the meme with the like this is our New Year, this is our Christmas. Maybe he was referring obviously to bishop. Oh, he's saying yeah, it's unclear if he's a priest or a bishop or something. Okay, got it. All right, crack the code. Um, questions before we end our stream. Hello. Oh, I remember. I wanted to read something from me and my ADD. Oh, by the way, a band on his channel. When Father Sebastian Crafey and I did that stream, and we were both kind of joking about our ADD. I've been clear. I don't actually think ADD is a real disability. I think it kind of describes the way I kind of think and stuff like that. And who's writing me now? Oh, forgive me. I think in light of kind of linear left brain, them kind of thinking that our society promotes and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't work well with that, but I don't think that's a like I have a disability. I've never used an excuse. but just explain things. So some guys like, oh, I'm disappointed that you guys fell for the ADHD. I don't have ADHD, I have ADD. First of all, psyop and believe and using an excuse. I'm not using an excuse. But for example, that does kind of explain, like, yeah, I'm not a linear kind of left brain dominant. I'm really good in the left brain, but my right brain's dominant. The way that I go is like, here's a point that I was brought up 35 minutes ago that eventually come back to. That's all I'm saying. Nothing wrong with that. I didn't say that's a disability, and I'm not using an excuse. But I want to read and get back to the point made 35 minutes ago. And this is from, well, it's like we have two presidents now. It's a co-president, like the bishop and then former dean. All right, but I'll read this and we'll kind of talk about it, and then we'll end the stream. I'll answer that question first. I did both snowboarding and skiing. And then I got to a point, I'm trying to remember when this happened. What was like in my 20s, that, you know, I was constantly like, okay, today do I snowboard, today I ski. And then I was like, I think I'm dividing my time up. Like, couldn't I get a lot better if I just focused on one? And so I chose skiing over snowboarding. I think for a couple different reasons. I was actually a little better at skiing than snowboarding. But then it was like, oh, I think because I've always been kind of anti-herd mentality, kind of, you know, anti-authoritarian. The factor was like, that's what was popular. It's like, oh, you ski? Ha. Don't you know young people snowboard? That I wanted the distance. I'm like, no, I want to actually lean into, I want to be the traditionalist, right? I want to bring back tradition. I want to be the Norwegian skier, right? And I'm going to be real good at it. And so I separated myself from the in vogue snowboarding community. That's what I was supposed to. That's what young people do. They snowboard. It's boomers that ski. I'm like, yeah, but what if I change that? What if I go back to tradition? And interesting enough, right about that time, guess what started happening? Same thing. People like much better than me. Like, remember Johnny Mosley and stuff? Then they went to skis and they turned it into something different that blew snowboarders away. Like jumping off cliffs and doing the helicopters and stuff like that, and flips. And it changed the whole, because people had a mindset like me that move away from the herd mentality, bring up tradition, and give it your own flair. And I can still snowboard, but like, it's one of the best decisions I ever made. That, uh, and as far as surfing, I'm a longboarder. Return to tradition. Do you notice in all these things, I'm a traditionalist? Yeah, I can't stand Virgin. I joke with my wife. She like, you know, says something like, "Why are you do like?" I'd be like, "I'm neuro. You can't say that to me. I'm neurodivergent." She's like, "Stop it." Of course, never give up on the death penalty. That's an orthodox. It's codified in Justinian law. Like, why would we ever give up on? Maybe if people stop doing crimes that require the death penalty, maybe. But like, yeah, that's actually orthodox and codified in law. Justinian law. All right. I'm going to read this and then we're going to end. Dear students, faculty, and staff, following the tragic act of violence yesterday at Utah Valley University, the recent heartbreaking shootings, K through 12 schools, and today marking the 24th anniversary of 9/11, we extend our prayers to all those affected in any way. This is from the president. We recognize the sorrow and unease these events bring to many in our community. We acknowledge those feelings and remind ourselves to lean into the values that make Carroll a compassionate and caring college. In moments such as these, we're reminded all too often how violence touches our world. As a Catholic college, we affirm the dignity of every human life and stand. Well, actually, that's good that he said that because of the abortion issue, and stand against violence in all its forms. Because one of yesterday's tragedies occurred on a university campus during an event where diverse viewpoints were being addressed, we feel especially called to respond. Carroll College is strongly committed to providing an environment where all matters of human ideas and experience, especially challenging matters, can be explored openly, heard, contemplated, and argued productively in an environment of collective respect. At Carroll, we believe people should be able to explore different perspectives and express their views openly without fear of violence and retaliation. Good, I hope that's setting a precedent. Now, it'd be interesting if, like, anybody was like, can we talk about fascism? Is a possible solution to and see what they do. But it's good he's saying this. Let us lead the way as a community of respectful, compassionate individuals, showing that their ideas can be met with mindful discernment and open hearts and minds. And then there's just some information about campus ministry, public health resources. We hold all those affected in prayer, and together let us affirm the commitment to fostering a community where everybody feels safe, valued, and supported. Now, it is interesting, though, that I did appreciate the governor of Utah identified this specifically as a political assassination. So, if I had a critique of this, I think it's too vague. All forms. But the violence, yeah, of course. Notice, like, some of the bishops in synod made synodal statements before that was kind of like, well, we condemn all forms of racism. It's like, yeah, but there's only one thing kind of going on, and it's anti-whiteism, right? By that, like, but that's too specific. So I get kind of annoyed, when it's just it feels like throwing bones. Well, I'll just make it general enough, right? But it's like, yeah, but this is like, it's obviously like, why won't anybody talk about the details and specifics? This is the left. Yeah, of course. What did I say in the stream? I discourage vigilantism from conservatives and the right and violence. But I made it very specific that these matters that actually happened are liberal left wing. They created, they're cheering it on, but we can't touch that because that's too divisive. Well, I thought we were supposed to have an environment we could talk about these things. Furthermore, the fact that any of these liberal professors that I work with, and I get along fine with them, like, never had arguments, but, like, I don't like to see Skittles and BLM posters on your door. At a Catholic college, under a conservative Roman Catholic bishop, like, it's crazy. Like, I know Bishop Vedder's been good, and he shut down some stuff before, and maybe that in light of this stuff, I was thinking, I had to go through with the other university I teach online, sexual harassment. And as painful as those are, it's actually, you learn some stuff. And I learned something that was kind of interesting, that, first of all, sexual harassment isn't like physically sexually assaulting it's not limited to, it's actually pretty broad. And you better be careful and read up about that, because your language, this is how sexual harassment is defined. Anything that you say or actions that you do that makes another employee feel uncomfortable, that's related to sex, right? Meaning male or female. Like, so if you made a joke about females, like that's actually, or somebody being effeminate or something, like that's actually sexual harassment. You'd be fired and maybe prosecuted from. So it's really vague in general. And there's a subcategory of what's called so either, I don't use the word transgenders anymore because that's, given where we're living, that's not good. We're not nouns, first of all. You're either male or female. That's a sex. So stop using those kind of leftist liberal like terms. They put them in there for a purpose, to obfuscate and mess things up and make it unclear, confuse you. But it can relate to either male or something that offends somebody or makes somebody feel uncomfortable, that relates to their sex of being male or female, or sexual actions too, because that's involved. The subcategory was that you could be charged for sexual harassment is creating a hostile work environment. That's a subcategory of that's related to either that simply relates to sex, male or female, or sexual actions or anything like that. Okay, so I thought about it. I thought about something. Think about what you. Shalom, 1999. Thank you, FDA. I love skiing. Snowboarding was too difficult for me. Haha. It would be sweet if you wore caustic. Oh, yes. People always joke about that. But thank you so much for your. All right. So going back to this, I was thinking about something, but wait a minute. If you're a liberal professor at a Catholic college, so it's technically against Catholic teaching on human sexuality, right? I know we could get into the whole thing about that, what's going on in the Roman Catholic Church, but like there are encyclicals and documents defining. Having a Skittles pride flag is related to what? Sex. Sexual orientation, right? So it already fits into that category. So the next question to ask, does it provide a hostile work environment? Yes. Now it's supposed to be, they're saying, oh, well, we're not encouraging it, but there's people that inevitably, we wouldn't deny going to college there if they have these these tendencies, proclivities. And so we just want to make people feel safe. But it's like, yeah, but you have a whole host, and it's not just Catholics that go, there's Protestants that go there too. A whole host of students and faculty members that believe that acting on those sexual impulses is a sin, who don't believe that sexual desires equal identity. We reject that. And we're having it shoved in our faces because you have it on a professor's door. Doesn't that fit the legal definition of hostile work environment? I don't particularly feel that my views are welcome there. Now, in light of the recent tragedies and violence, I'd say even more so. Who are the majority of mass school shooters per capita? They're transformers. They're literally wearing Protect Trans Kids with knives and guns and saying they're going to kill us. If you don't agree with us, if you're a Christian, we're killing you. And the symbol behind that is the Pride Skittles flag. I don't see why this can be allowed even legally. It fits, it seems to be a clear, like, an example that fits under the definition of sexual harassment in terms of creating a hostile work environment. That doesn't mean you can't have counselors and people that talk to people who, I'm not saying at this point, kick them out. Don't ever allow somebody who's Skittles into the college. Yeah, protected class. There's only one unprotected class, by the way. And Jeremy Carl wrote a book about that. But I've seen that they do. Liberal professors have done this. Well, we don't. They feel that people are going to kill them. And nobody's talking about killing Skittles people. Like, I mean, talk about delusion and gaslighting projection. They're literally killing us, and they're like accusing us of like, well, they feel so they don't feel safe. Because it's not about that. They're lying to you. It's not about like, it's pushing the indoctrination on you. It's making you have to see it. It's normalizing something that's a mental illness. And it needs to stop. It's just like, I think now's the time to act legally. I encourage the president, the bishop, to be like, just like, you know what? You don't have to kick the Skittles kids out. The 3 that are probably in our college. That's what's so funny. Our college, how many are there? 2, 3 that maybe, I mean, come on. We're literally changing all this and creating a hostile environment to make 3 people feel safe in an already safe environment. Nobody's going to give them a hard time and go after them and make them feel uncomfortable. They're already safe. You're making everybody else feel unsafe. You're making tradition, Catholics, Orthodox, Protestants feel marginalized and unsafe. Like, pull it down. Like, why do you have to put it up there? I just don't get it. Yes, and Antifa too. By the way, here's what's going to happen. My prediction, and they should have done this a long time ago. Apply RICO statutes to Antifa. You want to end this stuff? And BLM too. What is RICO? If there's an organization, a criminal organization, and it has to be as an organization, any one of the members, right, or affiliates, doesn't mean you pay dues or anything like that, like a gang, that commits a crime, all of them can be arrested. Now they knew this is why they're like, Antifa's not an organization, it's an idea. I mean, how stupid. Can't you see the mob saying, hey, what? I mean, RICO was really to go after the mob. Family. It's not an organization. What? Bada bing, bada boo. But family's an idea. You can't arrest me. Hey. Can you imagine the mob saying that? These guys actually have uniforms and a flag. They're funded. It's an organization. And who cares if it isn't? I'm tired. Like, we're making it an organization. How about that? And you're all going to jail. Lock them all up. Every member of BLM and Antifa. It'll go away. We know, as Jose said, if they want to stop crime, they can do it. We're not care anymore if that's fair or what you think about that. Oh, I thought you guys were all utilitarians and it was a numbers game. The overall, creating optimistic actions, the overall benefit. You're all utilitarians, you better commit to it. It doesn't matter about fairness. We're not Kantians. Utilitarians aren't Kantian. Well, that's fair. Notice how they jump back for it. Oh, I'm a deontological ethicist now. I'm a Kantian. No, I'm a utilitarian, right? When I don't get my way. I change my position so that I get my way. Hold them to it. Nope. Doesn't matter if it's fair. You're utilitarians by your own principle. We're gonna call them actual organizations, and like everyone will be arrested because it'll stop crime. Oh, how about gun violence? I brought this one up too. You're using utilitarian arguments and thinking? Fine. We'll look at what groups are proportionally creating more crimes, and we'll have the gun restrictions on them. That's not fair. That's not just. No, you're not allowed to use that. You can't be a Kantian now. You stand by what you just said. We'll end crime and gun violence. We'll just target certain groups, right? Restriction. It's actually not fair that we all should suffer for what certain groups and communities are doing. That's not fair. So you have to stand by your principles now. That's what those guys, the liberals, are going to be held to. All right, I'm for infringing on the Second Amendment. Not for me, right? But obviously for the groups that are that have more problems in their society and groups. And maybe the leaders of those groups the good ones will stand up and fix their communities. This needs to stop. There's something, and there has been good ones. This needs to stop. Are you a group? Are you an ethnicity? Then stand by your group. Help them. One part of the body suffers, all of it does. But I'm not going to suffer because because what other people are doing, and specifically with the Transformers, we at least had the gun restrictions where, like, you can't own guns if, like, you're mentally ill. That's why they moved it out. One among many reasons. Then it's no longer mental. It's just not a mental illness now. So you give insane people guns who are violent, homicidal, and suicidal. And are you shocked? They are literally the largest percentage of school shooters at this point. That's the first group. Just be like, that's fine. They're not allowed to have guns. Any posts that they support that, like, that should be. Yeah, I'm a utilitarian, and then I switch to Kant when these people are jokesters. Jokesters. All of these are arguments to just show the hypocrisy. And I think we're at a point where people's like, we don't care. They don't care what they're saying. We're way beyond the point of dialogue politically, in terms of political discourse, not in terms of salvific, right? That's why I made that in the church. All are welcome to come and to be healed. And you can be. But I'm saying, in terms of political dialogues, do you think conservatives care? They're saying, well, that's hypocrisy. Rights, equity, justice, way beyond that. Can you imagine being a soldier on the battlefield, and people are actually shooting at you, and you actually have to have a dialogue and argument about Kantian ethics and utilitarianism? We're not being logically considered. It's like, you do realize the social contract was broken. That's what a state of war is. You can't use, in a state of war, the social contract of rational rules, rights, and justice are gone. Like, what a stupid thing to be like, in a state of war, to be like, you have to commit to you're being hypocritical. Like, nobody cares when they're on the battlefield, right? And that's the analogy. It's like, that was the symbolic act. Charlie Kirk's death is not an actual physical war. This was analogous. That the rules What do they say? All fair in love and war. The rules are gone. Like, nobody's gonna listen. Nobody cares. It's not even in like the same category anymore. And you did it to yourself. Like, you pushed too hard, right? And you created that. You created a war like situation, which there are no more rules anymore. I'm not encouraging that. I'm denouncing the violence and I'm making a factual statement of analysis of the political situation. Like, that's it. As far as politically, the social contract's been broken. Can you look at Stephen Molyneux's universally preferable behavior? He goes through it. Didn't Jay already deal with this? I mean, sometimes I want to like go back and re-dig up stuff that's already been refuted. It boiled down to subjectivism. That was the debate. Sorry, 12:30. I said 30 minutes ago. It's like the theme of 30 minutes. My 30 minutes ago, we're ending the last point, and then another 30 minutes goes by. So I will take this as the ending point. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Let's see. Just look real quick. Schlomp, thank you. Contemporary companion Jack, the guitar god. Scene. Matthew. Paige Strong. Jonathan Kelly. Matthew again. Austin. Hey. Dave the Philippian. Janos. Sergius. I want to thank you all for your super chats so much. Please keep all of us, myself included, in your prayers. Try to take the advice that I gave you as far as moving forward these difficult times. And may God have mercy on us all. And till next time, God bless you and keep you, preserve you. And bye-bye.